What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of The Drop presented by Discover. I'm Arda Öcal. He's Greg Wyshynski in Sunrise, Florida, where he just witnessed the Florida Panthers emphatically destroy the Edmonton Oilers in game number 3. We're going to get to everything, Wish, the highlight. We're going to break down game 3. We're even going to have a little fun at the end of the show. But first things first, I've been following your Twitter all night. Apparently, you are day-to-day with an upper body injury due to the amount of bass coming from the sound system and the DJ. This looks very unsafe. Are you wearing earplugs?
Everything's fine. The press box was vibrating from the amount of bass, which I guess is only to be expected when the great DJ Khaled was here performing between periods and getting the crowd hyped before the game. But it makes sense that there's booming, head-pounding bass, considering what a headache the Florida Panthers were in this game for the Edmonton Oilers. But Arda, do not put in the newspaper the Oilers were upset. They were not upset. We'll get to it later.
Okay, they were not upset. A lot of Oilers fans will be upset by watching this highlight. We're going to show you exactly what happened in game number 3. There's Connor McDavid before the game. There's Sam Reinhart yet to factor in on the score sheet. But the Florida Panthers very quickly did just that. Brad Marchand in perfect position right there, beats everyone. And it's Brad Marchand, one of the greatest mercenaries in NHL history, one of the greatest trade deadline acquisitions ever when it's all said and done. He's already had signature moments. He was the hero in game 2. He scores early in game 3. And guess who? That is Carter Verhaeghe scoring. What a shot. My goodness, beats Stuart Skinner above the blocker side shoulder. Corey Perry made it 2-1, but then it's Sam Reinhart. Samson. He gets a goal in this series. That's his first point. And Sam Reinhart able to capitalize and beat Stuart Skinner to make it 3-1. Second period, Sasha Barkov some play in the zone, a steal. It's a breakaway. And another goal for Sam Bennett, who leads the NHL postseason in scoring. He is sprung, and he beats Stuart Skinner. The Florida Panthers ran away with this one. They chased Stuart Skinner. Calvin Pickard came in later. It didn't matter. Your final score is 6-1 in favor of the Florida Panthers as they get the job done in game number 3. And I gotta say, Wish, a lot of people were not predicting this kind of scoreline, especially the way games 1 and 2 went. But you said that, what did you just say? The Oilers are not concerned. They're not worried. They're not scared. Well, how could that be?
Don't put in the newspaper we were upset. Look, to a man, the Oilers after the game swore that the Florida Panthers did not get under their skin. Anyone who watched this game understands that they are lying to themselves. This was classic Panthers hockey. This is them doing all the little things that they do to get you to get off your game. The Bennett stuff, Marchand stuff, all of the stuff that the Panthers do, I think worked to agitate the Oilers tonight. And the telltale sign of that being the case was Evander Kane, who, by the way, had more penalty minutes in game 3 than he had in the previous 17 games of the postseason, saying after the game that they get away with stuff that we don't get away with. Think about that for a second. They get away with stuff that we don't get away with. And what that tells you is 2 things. One, the Panthers are really good at getting away with stuff, and they got away with stuff in game 3, and it pissed off the Oilers and got them off their game. And 2, the Oilers tried to play that game. And Stuart Skinner, in his post-game comments, acknowledged that they played right into the Panthers' hands. The Panthers want this to be a track beat offensively. They've got the guns to do it. They want it to be a grinding game. They want it to be a game that's played with agitation and after the whistle stuff and, a bunch of penalties in the first period like we saw for the last 2 games. and they played right into it. And like Evander Kane said, when the Oilers try to play that game, they can't do it as well as the Florida Panthers. No one does it as well as the Florida Panthers. You might have to go back to the bad boy Pistons of the early 1990s, Arda, to find someone who has done it as well as the Florida Panthers have done it. And the results are they blow out Edmonton in an emphatic Game 3 victory.
140 total penalty minutes in this game. That is the fourth most in Stanley Cup final game history, to the point that you were making there. How much of this game, let's just focus on how the Panthers really, like, they just outplayed the Oilers in this game, and sure, they, whatever, agitating, whatever, headlines, yada, yada, yada. How much of this is the Panthers just played a great game versus the Oilers just didn't show up and they couldn't play their game? Like, McDavid and Draisaitl largely absent in this game. They've been terrific in the first two games. How much of this is the Panthers just played a better game or the Oilers just didn't?
They fell apart. They became unhinged. Like, it's okay to talk about the logistics of the game, and we'll talk about the logistics of the game. But we just watched a game where the Oilers took a parade of penalties and then did a bunch of circus nonsense in the third period to send a message to a team that will get punched in the face and laugh it off. We just watched a game where Jake Wallman was on the Oilers bench after AJ Greer stole his glove and threw it into the benches. Jake Wallman on the Oilers bench squirting his water bottle with a stream of water at the Panthers bench because that's how irritated he was. They came apart tonight. All of this talk about the professionalism, the poise, the playoff experience, having been there already, having been mentally toughened to be back in the Stanley Cup final against the team that beat them in 7 games, that all went out the window. It was amateur hour tonight. Like, they looked like they didn't belong on the same ice sheet as the Panthers, either from a mental toughness standpoint or from a gameplay standpoint. And let's talk about the gameplay. You mentioned McDavid and Draisaitl. 13th time in the history of those two guys being teammates where neither one of them had a point. The Oilers are 2-11 in those games. Leon Draisaitl tonight, Arda. Leon Draisaitl did not have a shot attempt in this game for only the second time in his 93 games of playoff hockey. Like, so you've got a parfait of problems right now if you're the Oilers. Okay. Several layers are you let yourself get unhinged, you played it into the Panthers' hands, and you lost the game and lost the thread pretty quickly. But then underneath all of that, they held the two best players in the world in check. And don't look now, but Sergei Bobrovsky's playing pretty well these days, while Stuart Skinner just got pulled from a game again. Not good. Any of it for the Oilers.
That's a huge story to me right there. He made 42 saves, did Bobrovsky. Another great performance in game number 3. And we've been talking a lot about Stuart Skinner. The Oilers seem to habitually outscore their concerns, but they just could not do that in game number 3. You talked about McDavid and Draisaitl. They were potent in games 1 and 2. They were absent in game number 3. And that's why I asked the question, like, is it the Panthers just solving and short-circuiting the Oilers? And to your point, the Oilers not being able to handle it and essentially throwing a tantrum in this game and doing what they did in the third period. Let's focus on the goaltenders for a second.
Yeah.
Stuart Skinner out, Calvin Pickard in. In your opinion, who starts game 4? Who should start game 4?
I think Skinner will. Like, I asked Knobloch that question, Chris Knobloch, their head coach, in his post-game availability. Why did you pull Skinner? And what are your thoughts for goaltending in game 4? He said they haven't made a goaltending decision for game 4, but that he didn't think a lot of the goals were on Skinner. And frankly, he's kind of right. I mean, like, we had the breakaway from Bennett. Verhaeghe's shot was insanely great for their second goal. I think you can fault Skinner, unfortunately, for maybe one of the most important goals of the game, which was Marchand's first goal, where he had no idea where the puck was. He was actually diving towards the crease when Marchand had already deposited the puck in the net. And then he had, a really bad moment where he took himself a delay of game puck over the glass penalty that resulted in their 5th goal, and then he's gone. We've talked about this before. Like they like Skinner because they like his fight. His teammates get inspired by how he battles back. So I don't think we'll see a change for game 4. If it ever got to a game 5, they're down 3-1. Maybe we see a change if he hadn't played well in game 4. But I think he'll probably be back for 4. But again, the big problem right now is that we talked about how like Stuart Skinner just didn't have to lose the series, and I don't think that he's played poorly enough where you can say he's losing the series, but he doesn't have the ceiling that Bob has. Bob's ceiling is he can win the series. In the last 2 games, he's been really, really good, in my opinion.
Okay, so let's expand that. Last question on game number 3. So the Oilers got solved, they got short-circuited, they got frustrated. Is this, when we look, do you think that this is the Panthers can keep this going and they've solved the Oilers and they'll be able to continue to frustrate them and they now have the solution, they have the playbook? Or is this a Connor McDavid's in the locker room, dig the F in, and they bounce back and take one in game 4?
Well, Connor's going to have to lead him. I mean, this is a signature moment in his career, this game 4, okay? Because they didn't do anything, him and Draisaitl, in game 3. After the game, McDavid acknowledged that the Oilers probably haven't played their best game yet in the series, and then he said it's coming. So, sneak preview, we get ready for the best game because they're going to have to find it. Couple of points that I'm a little concerned about. Now, the Oilers have talked about how the beginning of this game with the parade of penalties, it's the 2nd game in a row there's been a parade of penalties, how that doesn't play to their strengths. It's a pretty good power play team, man. I mean, it's Bouchard, it's McDavid, it's Draisaitl. I know that they don't necessarily want to play this series on special teams because the Panthers are pretty good, but you still have your opportunities and they didn't convert them. And the other thing that has me really concerned about them right now is that I thought that there was a chance that their defense, the actual defensemen, were going to be a mobile puck-moving solution to the Panthers' forecheck that absolutely gobbled up the Carolina Hurricanes like Pac-Man in the conference final. This defense has not been up to the task. They have been behind a wrecking ball called the Panthers' forecheck the entire series, and in this game, they collapsed. I mean, it was not a very good night for them at all. So I'm a little concerned about the way that's trending. But again, it's if you listen to what the Oilers were saying tonight, it's that they came here for a split, and now they still have the opportunity to get one. But where I'm sitting, man, I thought not getting the second win in Edmonton was trouble. And now you've put your back against the wall, right, to have to win game 4. Yeah. And that's a tough place to be because the Panthers started to kind of figure out in game 2, and now in game 3, we see that they really sort of figured it out. So something's going to have to change pretty dramatically. It's going to have to start with McDavid and Draisaitl, or else this thing is going to be in a heap of trouble heading back to Edmonton.
And this game 3 now changes the narrative of the first 2 games because a lot of people are going to be thinking, well, the Panthers kept both of those games away from home very close, and they dismantled the Oilers in game number 3. So the confidence is fully on Florida's side in the eyes of many people. The Oilers are 2-11, by the way, to your point about McDavid and Draisaitl not being on the score sheet. 2-11 in 13 playoff games when McDavid and Draisaitl both don't record a point. We should also mention congratulations to Paul Maurice. This was his 1,000th career win, regular season and playoff. He's only the 3rd coach to do that.
And I want to apologize to the people of Edmonton.
Okay.
I wrote a story on ESPN.com that talked about the dominance of McDavid and Draisaitl. It published the morning of game 3. We all know I mushed him. We all know it's my fault. I put the story out in the world. Oh my God, is this the new Gretzky and Messier? And then he didn't score a damn point in game 3. So I will take all the blame you want to place on myself, my editors, ESPN, the Disney Corporation, whatever you want to do. I'm sorry. We mushed him. It's our fault.
Whoa. We are not putting any blame on Mickey Mouse and Goofy and the Mandalorian. This is Greg Wyshynski. We are no editors, nothing. No, simply Puck Daddy
Man.
and only Puck Daddy. That is it. Okay.
Did you get a letter from the lawyers during the drop to put that disclaimer out there?
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be a scrolling disclaimer on the drop. All right, winners and losers. Let's hit it. Time for winners and losers presented by Discover. Starting with a winner, the mighty Samson. Yes, Sam Reinhart breaks his 5-game goal drought with this snipe for the Panthers' third goal of the game, tied for his longest playoff goal drought in a single playoff. Had a beautiful behind-the-back pass to Aaron Ekblad for his goal, so he had 2 points in this game. Top-notch game for Sam Reinhart. His first 2 points of the Stanley Cup final. But yes, the mighty Samson is back, Greg Wyshynski.
You know what? He was injured in the Carolina series. He's still obviously working back from that injury. But he had a really strong game tonight. He kind of started trending in the right direction in game 2. He had 6 shots on goal then. He had 4 tonight. Had that amazing pass to Ekblad on the power play. Again, like the story of the first 2 games of the series were the play of Listerine, Lundell, and Marchand, and the play of Bennett, Kachuk, and Rodriguez. And now if we're getting Verhaeghe, Barkov, and Reinhart going, oh boy, the hole gets a little bit deeper for the Oilers. Loser for me, bench antics. Not only the Wallman thing, which we'll get to in a second, but AJ Greer stole his glove. Greer's playing in his first Stanley Cup final game. He's excited, steals the glove, puts it in the bench, and then Wallman responds by squirting his water bottle at the Panthers bench. It was funny. I saw our former colleague Brian Boucher, who was between the benches. You could see him slamming on the glass, being like, "Don't do that!" And Boucher told me that he's kind of like forced a habit there and trying to be a traffic cop between the benches. But again, man, this is just all silly stuff. Wallman said after the game, and it was pretty funny. He said that he momentarily forgot how many cameras there are at the rink to catch the act. But boy, was that silly.
I love your Kurt Angle reference there with the milk, the Steve Austin beer, the Kurt Angle milk. But also, Brian Boucher has a point, because when you are in that position, there's also a lot of technology around you. There's monitors that the people aren't seeing on camera. So clearly, he doesn't want water around all of the plugged in apparatuses that are around him. So I don't blame him whatsoever.
And again, I don't. It's an in the moment emotional thing. It's stupid, but I mean, like, again, sometimes we get blamed in the media for looking for narratives or looking for symbolism, or whatever. But is there any other better symbolism of this game than Jake Wallman squirting his water bottle at the Panthers bench because he's angry about someone stealing his glove? I mean, it's just like, if you
it is kind of funny.
Don't put in the newspaper that we're upset, except for
No.
the time when our defenseman squirted his water bottle at the bench of the other team because they took his glove.
Oh man.
My God, the Oilers tonight, man. What a disaster.
What narratives will we be looking for from our next winner, Wish and the Commish? We found some footage, ladies and gentlemen, friends. Gary Bettman thought our guy Greg Wyshynski was doing a live hit for ESPN. And the best part is what is that? Like, your reaction was hilarious.
I was in shock. Now I have to say that I did tell this story on a podcast with Jeff Merrick, and I referred to what Bettman did to me as a bear hug. That might have been a little bit of hyperbole or just me misremembering the moment. As you can see, it's more of a shoulder grab, right? But yeah, the commissioner wanted to pop in and say hi to the good people of ESPN. You and me, Arda, we were doing the international show at that point, the pregame show. And listen, man, he's headed towards retirement. He's going to have a collective bargaining agreement that's sailing towards completion without a work stoppage. The man is happy. 4 nations, Stanley Cup playoffs, outdoor games. Things are good. So good that he's willing to give me a little shoulder squeeze and pop on a live broadcast.
And Jeff, if you're watching this, go ahead and take the clip and call it back on the sheet so that you can call Wish out for exaggerating the story, which we clearly now know was the case.
He
But
tackled me.
nevertheless, you would never do that. No, writers in hyperbole. Come on, no, that would never happen.
Never.
Ever.
Never.
Loser.
Loser for me is comedy. So let's get away from the Stanley Cup Final for a second. At the NHL Prospect Combine recently, the Ottawa Senators asked a bunch of draft prospects to tell them a joke. That was one of the weird questions they were asking. Tell us a joke. Now, their head scout, Don Boyd, confirmed to TSN 1200 in Ottawa that the team did, in fact, ask draft prospects to tell them a joke. He said that they went 0 for 59 in prospects being able to tell them a joke. Then they got about 4 attempted jokes and a couple that made us laugh and a couple that weren't really jokes but made us laugh anyway. Of the 73 players that they interviewed at the combine. So again, these little draft prospects, not exactly comedians in their nascent form before they reach the NHL.
Yeah, I'm blaming hockey players in general for this. I'm sorry. Like, in what other sport, if you were to rank the athletes of all sports, Wish, in order of which athletes of a sport would be best in that situation, surprise, tell me a joke, hockey players would be ranked the worst. And that's unfortunate. Because it's just hockey culture. That's just the way that it is. Hockey players, athletes are not trained to be thinking of jokes. That's why. I would go to an NBA combine, an NFL combine, and I would be very confident that those prospective NFL and NBA players would have a joke ready. I would be much more confident in those environments than a prospective NHL player. And that's disappointing. It should not be the case.
Let me hit you with my theory.
Okay.
My theory is that of the 73 draft prospects they spoke to, around 65 of them all had a joke, but it was dirty. And because of hockey culture, they were concerned about telling a prospective boss, GM, coach, what have you, the dirtiest joke they know. What they don't realize is that if they did walk in there and be like, there once was a man from Nantucket, those guys probably draft this kid. Like they are looking for someone who wants to walk in and tell the prospective bosses the dirtiest joke that they know. That's my theory, at least on this.
I'm not saying that hockey players need to recite the aristocrats here, okay? I'm just saying that you should have, it shouldn't be that hard to think of a joke. And look, I get it. They're young kids, they're teenagers, they're, aspiring NHL players. I'm just saying other sport athletes would have had a joke prepared, and it would have landed too, I'm sure.
I'm just saying that if a guy walked into that room with the Senators and were like, husband and wife, their daughter and son and their dog, walk into a talent agent's office, I would give them an entry-level contract right there. I would forego the draft and be like, sir, you are a member of the Ottawa Senators.
Just, you know what? It's the Ottawa Senators. Make a Leafs 1967 joke and you're golden. That is the safest joke you can make. Anyway.
Yeah. Why do you have to cup your hands at a Toronto bar? Because they have no cups. Come on. Everybody knows the jokes.
Winner, TJ Oshie. Congratulations on a wonderful career, TJ Oshie. Happy trails in retirement. TJ announced his retirement today after 1,010 regular season games, won the Stanley Cup in 2018. Very famous, of course, for the Sochi Olympics in 2014. TJ Sochi went 4 for 6 in his shootout attempts to help defeat Team Russia 3-2. And good luck to your next chapter in your life, TJ. I will say that I had the pleasure of being in studio with him during the Stanley Cup playoffs. He spent a day with us in Studio W, and he did a terrific job. So maybe TV is in his future because he excelled in that analyst role in the one day that he did it with us.
And I could say I had the pleasure of being in Sochi when he became TJ Sochi and got on the Today Show and became an American hockey icon. That was a game I will never forget, being in Russia to watch him beat the Russians. Loser, Matthew Schaefer's swag. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the assumed number 1 overall pick in the NHL draft coming up later this month, who said he first met Connor McDavid when the Oilers star had his jersey retired with his Canadian junior team, the Erie Otters. Schaefer revealed on Monday, when talking to us in the media, that when he met McDavid, quote, I ran out of things to say and ended up looking at McDavid and going, I'm proud of you. Nobody would say that. I sounded like his dad. Can you imagine McDavid getting his jersey retired? And this child says, Connor, proud of you, man. It's fantastic.
And by the way, you know who Matthew Schaefer should have said that to? The Ottawa Senators.
Indeed.
There's your joke,
they
man.
know. There's your anecdote.
Exactly. There's your funny story / joke. Bonus loser. You could take this one.
Yeah, speaking of Canada, Arda. Bonus loser, Canada. Arda, an American team has won the Canadian Football League's Grey Cup more recently than a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. In 1993, Montreal won the Cup. In 1995, the Baltimore Stallions won the Grey Cup. Arda, care to comment on this disparity?
Why are you the way you are? Why do we have to bring this up? I can't believe. Like, first of all, I need to contact.
We're a stat-heavy show. We're trying to share knowledge.
First of all, I have to contact the ESPN Bet social media department and find out exactly who put up that ridiculous statistic for a team that hasn't existed for 20 years at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Dig the knife in further. Our chip flavors are better than American chip flavors.
It's just so weird. Think about that time when there was a bunch of American franchises in the CFL.
Yeah.
Like
that is.
Did they have state income tax advantages? Is that why they won the Grey Cup back then? I don't know. Who's to say?
It's quite possible. That's going to do it for Winners and Losers, presented by Discover. All right, to end the show, we're going to play a little game called Guess That Quote. As
hell yeah.
Here on The Drop, presented by Discover. We're always trying to leave you on a lighter note here. So what we're going to do is we're going to present a quote. We both have not seen the answers here. Our producers, Chris Cologne, Justin Cloutier, have curated a list for us, and they will reveal the winners to us at the same time, giving us some time, of course, to try and deliberate and find out who the quote was said by. All right, quote number 1 is, they can hold hands in the middle and cover the boards. I think I know this one.
I do too. I think I might have an unfair advantage here in this game, Arda, because I've been on site for the playoffs for the last.
Because they're all your answers. You asked Paul.
No.
Maurice
Well, this was Paul Maurice definitely, because this was Paul Maurice talking about the wingspan of Seth Jones and Nico Mikkola, his quote second pairing of defensemen, but definitely one that's been playing like a first pairing of defensemen.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Paul Maurice. We're 1 for 1. Here is the second quote. A walk-on water toe drag, so yeah, McJesus. This is also a Florida Panther.
Correct. So I'm thinking someone who probably tries to defend Connor McDavid. So you're thinking of your defensive forwards, you're thinking about your defensemen. I'm going to go Aaron Ekblad. That seems like a good Aaron Ekblad type line.
Yeah, I'm guessing it was Aaron Ekblad. Yeah, this was during his availability. I remember this, where he was essentially describing the whole play and talking about it at length, and then that's how he ended the quote. So yes, 2 for 2. We're crushing this. Quote number 3. You can't learn that. When asked about how a kid could learn how to do Connor McDavid's toe drag assist, that was definitely Leon Draisaitl, because this was one of the funniest clips of the playoffs, Wish, where the reporter asked, "Were you in that room? Were you in the room when that question was asked?"
For that, no.
Okay,
no.
So a reporter asks McDavid, what advice do you give to kids to, like, essentially do what you're doing on the ice? And McDavid tries to answer the question, but he's kind of struggling to answer the question because he doesn't want to make himself look like the greatest player on the planet, which he clearly is. So Leon Draisaitl sort of saves him mid-sentence and says, "I'll answer it for him. You can't teach that because he's freaking McJesus."
My other favorite teachable moment quote was someone asked Gus Forsling what advice he would give a young hockey player about blocking shots in the NHL, and Forsling said something to the effect of, "Be prepared to take a bunch of pucks to your face." Like, all right, there you go. Harsh education for the youngsters. Get ready to get your face rearranged by flying rubber if you want to play like Gus Forsling.
Yeah, and you know what? That's great advice. Now kids will know what they're getting into when they're blocking shots. I like that a lot.
Indeed.
That's great advice. Quote number 4, we're 3 for 3. Sometimes you say a prayer. Sometimes you shotgun a beer. That's kind of like our team.
All right. Once again, it's unfair that I know this one. This is definitely still Paul Maurice, I believe.
Okay.
Talking about the
what a picture.
The dichotomy of the Florida Panthers being it's like shotgunning a beer in church. He basically said, have you been to church? Yes. Have you ever shotgunned a beer? Yes. But would you ever shotgun a beer in church? No, you would not. He's talking about like, the that kind of thing. But it's Paul.
Okay.
I mean, it's what he does.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think we're going to have to expand. If we do this again, we're going to expand it to like quotes in history. So it's not like recent memory in our heads. We're 4 for 4. Boy, we have the greatest recollection in the history of hockey. Quote number 5. This is the last one. Pink Pony. Okay. Is that a band or is that a song? I got to get that as my ringtone. I definitely know this answer. The silhouette even looks like him too. That's the other thing. The silhouettes are kind of a big hint. Like a hockey fan, I would say 3 out of 10 hockey fans could probably figure out who that is based on the silhouette alone.
It's Wayno, baby. It's the great one.
There he is.
Wayne Gretzky talking about Chapel Roan, which is a maybe for the first time, one would assume. Maybe for the last time, one would assume. Talking about Pink Pony Club. Dancing at the Pink Pony Club.
So there you have it. We are 5 for 5. Congratulations to us.
Good job,
we
man.
are very smart. SMRT. We did it.
Yeah.
And that's going to do it for us here on The Drop, presented by Discover. The Florida Panthers are up 2-1 in the series. Wish teams that when the Stanley Cup final is tied at 1 and the team wins game 3, they go on to win the Stanley Cup 76% of the time. So congratulations to the Panthers.
But then, like, the team that wins game 1 wins, like 86% of I don't know, man. Every game of the Stanley Cup final has a different percentage assigned to it. Look, bottom line is this. They got to win game 4. Like, I as much as I thought they had to win game 2, they clearly have to win game 4. The Panthers are a team that still has problems letting teams off the mat, but they sure as hell ain't going to let the Oilers off the mat for a second straight season. So if we're going to have ourselves an Oilers Cup, if we're going to see Connor lift this bad boy up for the first time in his career and get rewarded for an amazing postseason and finally, put the caveat to bed of being the GOAT and not having a ring, they got to win game 4. If they don't, I think they are probably toast.
And you will see us.
What say you to that, by the way?
I agree. I don't think they're coming back from 3-1. If they do, that'll be one of the most legendary. I mean, almost as legendary as what they almost pulled off last season with the full reverse sweep.
Exactly.
But it would be. It feels insurmountable after what happened in Game 3. But hey, it's Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, so maybe they have something in the bag to surprise us. We will see. But yes, Game 4 extremely pivotal.
Let me just say this: like, if they do win game 4 here after what we saw tonight, I might need to be fitted for a neck brace for the whiplash I'll experience, because that would be one of the biggest momentum shifts maybe in the history of the Stanley Cup final, if they were able to get themselves back in shape and back in order and win a game 4 after what we saw tonight.
Game 4, Thursday. After the game concludes, you will find us here on the NHL and ESPN YouTube on The Drop, presented by Discover. Wish, Arda, we will see you then.